風魔か動乱の牙
I don't know about you, but among the basic elements in anime, wind is by far my favorite, right up there with ice. I think that there's really something about this element that represents the free spirit that resonates well with me. It also helps that I prefer sleek and precise tactics in battle over the sheer power of fire or the sweeping might of water. Being one of the stock elements in anime, there are undoubtedly a lot of characters that can harness the power of wind. Fortunately, anime truly shines in giving creative twists to something seemingly so basic, but I won't be ranking these characters according to who can blow their enemies away the best. Doing so and comparing power levels is an exercise in futility. Instead, I'll be doing the top 10 characters I like, be it due to their story, how they affect the overall status quo of the series, how creative their abilities are, or just how badass they are. That being said, let's get started. With the plethora of abilities and powers available to the My Hero Academia cast, it was no surprise to find a character who harnesses the power of wind. For My Hero Academia, it comes in the form of the boisterous Inasa. Now, what surprised me here is the fact that Inasa doesn't look like your typical wind user. He's big and burly, and he doesn't look like the typical sleek guy with wind powers. He's also not the brightest guy around, but don't let that fool you though. He's one badass hero, and that can be seen in his being the ace of his school and a fitting foil for Todoroki, a way more hot-blooded one. Up next is another shonen character, Jin from Yu Yu Hakusho. With Yu Yu Hakusho seemingly getting some much-needed appreciation in recent days, I think it's just fitting that we have Jin on this list. Among the demons in the series, Jin's one of those that impressed me a lot due to his energetic personality. He's the right kind of upbeat and friendly enemy to Yusuke in contrast to the more sinister villains, and they match up pretty damn well. He makes very creative use of his powers too. The wind's not only his weapon, but also his ally in helping him close in on enemies. Is it me, or does he remind you of Peter Pan too? At number 8 is Kagura. It didn't surprise me that one of Naraku's incarnations in Inuyasha would be someone with the power over wind. Kagura fights using multiple variations of wind attacks ranging from bullets to huge tornadoes. What surprised me more is the amount of character development Kagura got. I think that among Naraku's incarnations, Kagura has become one of my favorites simply because of the surprising depth to her character. In fact, she's the character you can argue was forced into evil. She doesn't serve Naraku out of her own will and has some pretty neat scenes of her wanting to break free. There's also the development with Sesshomaru to the point that her legacy remains to haunt the latter even after her part in the story is done. Next in 7th is Kazuma from Stigma of the Wind. Anyone remember Stigma of the Wind? I think it's quite an underrated show for how much fun I had with it. And with it came, for me, one of the earlier prototypes of the light novel hero. You know, with that reserved appearance that people often associate with Kirito clones and the status of being outcast due to a flaw somewhere, but practically overpowered everywhere else like Tatsuya. That's Kazuma in a nutshell. He can't master fire magic, so he went with the next best thing, wind magic. Look where that brought him. Standard wind attacks, being able to use his powers as a shield to the point of being near invincible. The list just goes on. I think that if you're the type to like overpowered and cool heroes, this entry just convinced you to watch some Stigma of the Wind. Sixth in line is Ren Hakue from Magi. Ever since her introduction, I always had a liking for Hakuei. She provides the much-needed air of idealism and sensibility in her family, which, at the point of the anime, was given the image of being the leaders of some warmongering empire conquering civilizations left and right. It doesn't help that the best of the Ren family had introductions or eventually ended up being on the darker and more manipulative side of things. In contrast to especially the redhead siblings, Hakuei provides a much softer edge. That doesn't mean that she's weak though. She's the character that embodies inner strength and resolve in contrast to the more combatable princes of the Ko Empire. She also dons quite the cool and badass transformation when using the full power of her Jin. Speaking of idealistic and innocent, Fairy Tail's Wendy marvels at number 5. Who could forget sweet little Wendy? Always bringing a vibrant energy to the main Fairy Tail cast, Wendy's as tough as wind users go. She may not seem like it at first, but she's the Wind Dragon Slayer, and we know what being a Dragon Slayer means in this series. Sure, she mainly plays a support role compared to the other Dragon Slayers, but where would the whole team be without her? Ever since her introductory arc, Wendy has played a very important part in practically every arc, both in helping the team in battle or keeping the combustible elements in the guild in line with her bubbly personality. She can kick it up a notch in battle too as well. With access to the powerful Dragon Force, she can sure pack a punch when needed to.
あんなに臆病で弱々しかったウェンディが今ドラゴンフォースを手に入れたんだ。
Wamu from JoJo comes in at number 4. With the crazy things we've seen from JoJo, it seems a shoo-in that a wind-based ability would be lackluster. However, this being JoJo, you just know that they'll be able to pull out something creative out of a mundane-looking ability and on a Pillar Man to boot. In Wamu's case, his entire body becomes his weapon as he channels the power of the wind. From his signature Divine Sandstorm, Wamu's capable of ripping anyone to shreds by manifesting his power in its most destructive form using his very body. Even people like Caesar have trouble against the power of Wamu's attacks. Compared to the wild abilities in the JoJo universe, Wamu's wind abilities may seem tame by comparison, but that doesn't make those abilities any less dangerous for both his unfortunate opponents and himself.
Spirit Sword!
Asta's childhood friend and eternal rival finds himself on this list because, well, why wouldn't he? Just like Asta, he seeks to become Wizard King. Unlike Asta though, Yuno's naturally talented and can be quite condescending. With his amazing wind powers manifesting in the form of arrows and blades, it's not hard to see why he wouldn't end up that way. For me, Yuno really shines in his creativity and how he combines multiple facets of magic to become a resourceful fighter. This is in large part to Sylph, which I can safely say has become his ace in the hole in a lot of situations. He's also one of those people who you would think of as an edgy anti-hero in his first appearances, but the story quickly turns that around and shows him in a more sympathetic light. He's one of the more unambiguously heroic guys out there, and I think that's a pretty nice change of pace from the Sasuke characters in these shows. Just falling a bit short of the top spot on the list is the very badass Monkey D. Dragon. The name Monkey D. Dragon is something that ought to send chills down the spine of any pirate hotshot in the world of One Piece, and for good reason too. Being the leader of the revolutionaries is one thing, but having the title of the world's most wanted man is another, especially when we have monstrosities like Kaido and Big Mom in the One Piece world. Look, I know bounties and titles may not mean much when it comes to the overall strength of the characters in One Piece, but it does still say a lot about him, don't you think? This is why every scene where he appears in and directly intervenes is treated like such a big thing, such as the one where he saves Luffy from Smoker. I doubt that anyone would be collecting the sky-high bounty for Dragon anytime soon. I think that he falls short from first place because, despite how badass Dragon is, he doesn't quite have the amount of development like our winner on this list does. Climbing the top and overcoming all the competitors on the list, we have Naruto. Overcoming adversity is one of the greatest legacies Naruto has carved out for himself. I'm not sure if Naruto is the first name that goes into your mind when we think of wind powers, but I think that few can match him in terms of the trials and challenges he's had to go through to get to the top. I think that also has something to do with the status of him being the main character of a story that spawned over a decade and captured the hearts of many anime fans. Still, it's a real joy to see the journey that Naruto took, which includes the acquisition of his now iconic Rasengan. Overall, I think that Naruto deserves this spot for being the quintessential shonen hero for a lot of growing teens in the early 2000s. He inspired a lot of growing kids in those days, and I think that this is the greatest power an anime character can have. So what do you think of that list? How would you rank these characters? Tell me through the comment section below because I want to know your opinions on this. I'm sure you can also hit me up with some awesome wind users in anime that didn't quite make it to this list. That's it for this list. Stay strong, stay awesome, and I hope to see you again.